Dogs. Where did they come from? Were there beagles roaming the earth thousands of years ago? Did golden retrievers live in the woods hunting and killing for food? Of course not. Dogs came about because of a process called domestication, meaning to tame an animal to live in close association with humans, the root of the word meaning belonging to the house. So where did dogs come from? They belong in the Canidae family. They're related to coyotes, jackals, dingoes, dholes, foxes, and wild dogs. Domestication occurs through natural selection, which is the process in which biological traits become either more or less common due to effects on the survival or reproduction of their bearers. Once Homo sapiens were here, this selection process also occurred through the human selection of traits to create Canis familiaris, which is our present-day dog. Dmitry Belyayev is a Russian geneticist famous for selectively breeding captive foxes based on their demeanor. He bred silver foxes of Siberia, which are usually bred for their fur. Through breeding, Dmitry Belyayev was able to make something very close to what a dog is today. His selective breeding consisted of only breeding the tamest of the foxes, the ones who did not cower when he tried to interact with them, but the ones who would whine, cry, and wag their tails for attention. The foxes were untrained, though, and had minimal interaction with humans. The only interaction they had was when their cages were cleaned or when they were fed. 130 foxes were eventually bred. Belyayev worked until his death, and the project was then continued for another 40 years. The domestication was not spontaneous, but it was a fairly quick process. They were not considered to be fully domesticated, as the dog is one of the only creatures that has been fully domesticated, but they were considered to be domesticated elite. Through this process of domestication, a certain behavior was picked out and then bred for. Even though they were breeding for certain behaviors, physical differences occurred as well. Though there was only a difference of 40 genes, the colors of the coats changed, the ears became floppier, snouts shorter, tails curlier, and heads wider. Behaviors are not dictated by genes, but they are made more or less likely by them. Genes regulate the formation of proteins that assign cells their roles. A small change in a gene can have a widespread effect. In Belyayev's experiment, it meant that the foxes opened their eyes earlier, had later fear responses, and were more playful after the domestication process. These Canis familiaris we have living in our households did, in fact, evolve from these carnivorous wolves. Wolves are known for being adaptable because of their anatomy and instincts. They live in packs and cooperate well together, though they are very territorial. It is speculated that Homo sapiens interacted with wolves. The wolves scavenged on waste, and the less fearful ones that ate around humans were naturally selected because they were around the humans more often. They became calmer and more sociable generation to generation. They bred the animals of their liking, the first step in domestication. Through this process, they became tamer and tamer, more distinct from their wild ancestors. Domestication is preceded by inadvertent selections of animals, the ones that are nearby and sociable. This process then becomes more intentional, with the less liked animals being abandoned or destroyed. It concludes with the intentional breeding for specific characteristics, usually social behaviors. Though dogs and wolves share a common ancestor, there are several differences. Wolf pups open their eyes at about 10 days, whereas dogs open their eyes about after 2 weeks. Wolves travel in packs, whereas our household dogs do not. Dogs appear to be slower to develop physically and behaviorally. They walk and carry things in their mouth much later than wolves do. The main difference between wolves and dogs is the length of the sensitive or critical period of social learning, which is the window of socialization. This is when dogs learn who is a dog, an ally, or a stranger. This is also the stage when dogs learn to have a preference of a certain species. Wolves have a significantly smaller window of social learning than do dogs, which explains why dogs are able to interact and socialize with humans much more easily. Dogs are considered to be a member of the human social group. They get attached to a primary caregiver, whereas wolves never become attached. They can move from pack to pack, leaving the other wolves of the pack very easily. Physically, dogs vary much more in size and types than do wolves, who are much more uniform in their appearance. Dogs have thicker skin, smaller teeth, and a smaller skull. Although studies have been done, it is unknown as to whether wolves or dogs are more intelligent. Though all of these differences are important, the most prominent is obvious. Our German Shepherds, our Border Collies, they all make eye contact with us. This is not a behavior a wolf would ever do. Eye contact can be considered a threat. It asserts authority. Dogs make eye contact with humans for information, reassurance, or guidance. Could this have been the first step in domestication? Were dogs chosen based on whether they were able to look us in the eye?